Hi, I'm Catalina, one of your SNAP4CT nutritionists, and today we're talking all about winter squash. We are here with our friends at Keney Park Sustainability Project on 183 Windsor Avenue in Windsor. Our friends from Keney Park Sustainability Project have locally sourced the squash that we are going to use today. Look at the beautiful squash that we have here. Festival acorn, spaghetti, and different kinds of butternut squash. So let's get started.
To most of us, squash reminds us of fall, but remember there are two types of squash, and it all depends on the time of year that they're harvested in. So if they're harvested in the summer, we have summer squash, and if they're harvested in the fall or the winter, we have winter squash. And today we're focusing on winter squash. Winter squash has very hard skin because it is harvested when it is mature. And that hard skin is what allows them to be stored at room temperature for many months, even over the winter time. Winter squash are very high in fiber, in vitamin C, in vitamin B6, magnesium, and also potassium. Oh, and vitamin A, check. It is very high in beta-carotene, which is a nutrient that turns into vitamin A in our bodies. Did you know that only 1 cup of butternut squash has enough vitamin A to meet your daily requirements? Pretty impressive, right? Did you know that you can eat the seeds in the winter squash? You probably have seen them at the grocery store. They're called pepitas, and they look like this if you get them at the grocery store. But you can also make your own. It's very easy. So what you need to do is you take your favorite winter squash and you take all the seeds out, you rinse them, you dry them, and then you put them in a pan, and then you put them in the oven to roast with a little bit of olive oil and even salt and pepper if you want. Very easy and a lot more budget friendly. Have you heard of spaghetti squash before? This is a really cool type of squash. When it's cooked, you can scrape the flesh and turn it into what resembles noodles. So it's pretty nice, and a lot of people eat it with tomato sauce as if they were eating pasta. Now let me show you the type of squash that I have with me here. This is called a red curry. This one's called acorn squash, and sometimes it has a little bit more orange. This one's called a delicata squash. And the skin is actually softer than many of the other winter squash, so this is nice to eat. And this is our typical pumpkin for Halloween. Oh, and wait until you see this one. I don't think you've seen anything like this before. Look at this. This is called a long neck butternut squash. These are only some types of squash. There are many other types of squash out there, but all of them are good for us. Now, how do we pick winter squash when we go to the grocery store or the farmer's markets? Choose those that look firm and don't have any soft spots or bruises or any cracks. Also, squash should feel heavy for its size. So make sure that you pick it up in your hands and you feel its weight. Also, because we're talking about winter squash, we want the skin to be really hard. So make sure that you select those that are hard to pierce with your fingernail. You can also do the tap test, and what you do with that is that you kind of knock on the skin with your knuckles. And if it has a hollowed sound, it means that it's good. If it's dull, that means that it's unripe or that it's spoiled. How do we store our winter squash? Well, luckily for us, because of that hard skin, we don't have to put it in the refrigerator. All we need to do is pick a spot in our kitchen that is dry, that it's cool, and that it's dark. And it can be there for months. Even though it lasts for many months, it's best to eat it within a month from getting it because it will have the best flavor. And when you're ready to eat your squash, all you need to do is wash your squash under cold running water and then help yourself with one of these vegetable brushes, and that's it. The best way to eat squash is the way that you like to eat it. It has so many uses in the kitchen. It can be used in soups or stews or salads, pie, biscuits. Since winter squash has that very hard rind, a lot of people remove the skin before cooking it. But remember that the skin has a lot of fiber and also really good nutrients for us. So I encourage you to leave it, and once it's cooked, it softens quite a bit. However, if you think that it's still too chewy or hard for you, then don't throw it away. Keep it and make stock with it later. And speaking of that hard skin, it may be difficult to cut it open sometimes. So here's a little tip for you. Put it in the microwave oven for about 3 or 4 minutes. It will help soften that skin a little bit, and it will make it a lot easier to cut through. All right, enough talk, and let's get to the best part, which is eating that squash. We are making a delicious burrito bowl using the spaghetti squash as the bowl. So let me show you what I have here. When the spaghetti squash comes out of the oven, all you need to do is get a fork and then start scraping the inside like this, and see how it resembles noodles when you do that? All we need to do now is, once you have scraped enough of the inside, we are going to add our veggies. We have some red bell pepper. We're going for color here. Have some jalapeno pepper for some heat, but you don't need to use it if you don't want to, or instead you can use green bell pepper. You can always take the seeds out as well to reduce some of that heat. But look how pretty the colors look. And we have some frozen corn and some frozen onions. Save time on chopping. We are going to add our black beans. They have been rinsed and drained to remove some of that sodium. The beans are giving us a lot of protein and fiber. Finally, we are going to top it with our cheese. I'm using a mix of feta cheese and mozzarella just because that's what I had in my refrigerator, but you can use whatever cheese you like. I am going to sprinkle a little bit of cumin and a little bit of pepper. And now this goes back into the oven at 375 for only 10 minutes just to melt the cheese. Our squash is out of the oven and we are going to put our toppings on. So I have some avocado here. We're going to put some green onions. We are going to put some salsa, already prepared salsa from the grocery store. And instead of using sour cream, we are going to use yogurt. And this is plain, non-fat Greek yogurt for extra protein, calcium, and vitamin D. And there you have it, your spaghetti squash burrito bowl. I hope you had fun today learning about winter squash. And don't forget to try this recipe at home. Spaghetti squash burrito bowl. It's on our website, SNAP4CT.org. Until next time, happy cooking.